Alien widow left to die on a mining outpost. A human brought her back to life. The mining outpost floated above the asteroid like a silent tomb. Its once bright signal beacons were dead, its docking lights nothing more than dull shadows against the void. Marcus Hale adjusted the controls of his repair shuttle, expecting nothing but broken systems and empty halls. He had been sent to fix power relays, maybe reconnect a comms line, but he did not expect life. Not here. The docking clamps caught his shuttle with a shudder. The hiss of atmosphere equalization sounded more like a sigh than a welcome. Marcus pulled on his helmet, though the sensors told him the air inside was still barely breathable. He had walked into too many forgotten stations to trust numbers alone. Inside, the corridors stretched out in silence. His boots echoed against the metal floor, each step sharp in the emptiness. Rust clung to the walls. Panels hung loose from the ceiling like torn skin. It was the kind of place where time itself seemed to have stopped, leaving only shadows behind. Marcus moved deeper, his flashlight cutting a path through the dark. He expected nothing but silence, but then he froze. It was faint, softer than the hum of his own breath inside the helmet. A sound out of place. He stilled himself, listening. There it was again. A shallow draw of air. A human might have dismissed it as the groan of old pipes, but Marcus had spent too many years in wrecks to mistake the sound of breathing. He followed it. His hand hovered near the sidearm at his belt, though he doubted raiders would still haunt such a dead station. The sound grew stronger, drawing him into a chamber at the heart of the outpost. There, beneath a collapsed support beam, he found her. A woman. No, not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the beam of his light, pale like moonlit stone with patterns that almost looked carved into her flesh. Her hair spilled across the metal floor, strands the color of burning copper. Her ears swept back into elegant curves, too sharp, too fine to belong to his kind. She was breathing, but barely. Marcus dropped to one knee, setting aside his pack. "Hey, hold on," he muttered, more to himself than to her. Her eyes flickered open. They were strange, luminous, a violet glow in the dark. She focused on him, and for a moment her gaze burned with defiance despite her weakness. Then she tried to push herself up. Her arm trembled. She collapsed again. "Easy," Marcus said, reaching for her shoulder. "You are hurt. Let me help." Her voice came out rough, almost a whisper, but there was strength in it. "No. Leave me." Marcus blinked. "What?" She turned her face away, wincing in pain. "My mate is gone. My place is with him. Do not insult me with your mercy, human." Marcus stared at her, thrown by the venom in her words. She wanted to die? He shook his head. "Sorry, not happening. You are alive. That means there is still a chance." Her eyes snapped back to him, fierce despite the weakness dragging her down. "You do not understand. My people, we do not live after loss. A widow follows her mate. To survive is shame. I will not carry that shame." Marcus ignored the bite in her tone. He had seen soldiers talk like this before, men and women who had given up long before the last bullet hit them. He reached for a patch kit from his pack, tearing it open. She tried to push his hands away, weak, desperate, but still resisting. "I said leave me." He caught her wrist and pressed the wound seal against her side. It hissed, fusing over torn flesh. She gasped in pain, her body arching as the medicine burned into her system. Marcus did not flinch. "Listen," he said firmly. "You are not dying here, not while I am here." Her chest heaved, her breathing ragged. She glared at him through strands of her hair. "You are stubborn." "Yeah," Marcus said, adjusting another bandage. "Get used to it." For a long moment, she said nothing. Only her shallow breaths filled the silence. Her eyes stayed on him, a storm of hatred and exhaustion, as if she despised him for pulling her back from the edge. But beneath that storm, something else flickered. Confusion, maybe even fear. Marcus tightened the straps on her bandage, his movements steady. "You got a name?" Her lips parted as if she wanted to refuse. At last, she whispered, "Leora, Vera." Marcus nodded. All right, Leora. You are not dying here. I will make sure of that. Her gaze held his, sharp and unyielding. Then she closed her eyes, letting the weight of exhaustion drag her under. Marcus sat back on his heels, exhaling slowly. The station around him groaned with age. The silence pressed in again, but it felt different now. This place was not empty. It held life. Fragile, furious, but alive. And that changed everything. Marcus dragged a broken chair into the chamber and set down his pack. The wound patches would hold Leora for now, but not for long. He needed water, food, something to stabilize her. The outpost had been stripped bare, but Marcus had learned to make do in worse places. Survival was always about improvising. When Leora woke again, her violet eyes narrowed at him. Her lips were pale, her breathing shallow, but there was still fire in her voice. You should not have done this. You should have let me go. Marcus poured water from his canteen into a dented cup and held it out. Drink. She turned her head away. I told you my life ended when his did. My people will never accept me now. They will spit on my name if I live. Marcus crouched lower, his tone calm but unyielding. Your people's beliefs are not my concern. You are alive. That is all that matters. Her gaze snapped back to him, sharp as a blade. To survive without honor is worse than death. Marcus sighed. He had heard this before, just with different words, different uniforms. Soldiers who believed dying in battle was better than living without comrades. He had buried too many of them. No, he said, shaking his head. Survival is strength. Giving up is weakness. And I am not about to watch you throw yourself away because of a tradition. Her jaw tightened. She tried to sit up, but pain stole the effort, forcing her back down. She glared at him, humiliated by her own weakness. You know nothing of my people. Do not speak of what you cannot understand. Marcus did not argue further. Instead, he set the cup against her lips. She resisted, but he pressed gently until she had no choice but to swallow. She coughed, furious, but the water slid down her throat. You will thank me later, Marcus said simply. For hours he worked around her, scavenging through broken storage lockers, reconnecting power nodes to the emergency grid. The station was crumbling, its systems failing one after another. If the life support collapsed, they would both suffocate. When he returned to check on her, Leora's eyes followed him. Why? She asked softly. Why fight so hard to keep me here? You do not even know me. Marcus paused, his hand tightening on the tools. Memories rose unbidden. Ashes, fire, the screams of his family when war tore his colony apart. He forced the memories down, keeping his voice even. Because life matters. Even when it hurts. Even when everything is gone. You keep going. That is how you win. Her gaze lingered on him, uncertain. She did not answer, only closed her eyes again. Days blurred together. Marcus forced her to eat, even if it meant grinding ration bars into paste and spooning it to her. She hated it, hated him, but each day she grew a little stronger. The outpost systems grew worse. Oxygen scrubbers failed, and Marcus had to crawl through choking ducts to repair them. Power flickered, threatening to plunge them into darkness. More than once, Leora hissed at him to leave her, to save himself, but Marcus ignored her every time. One night, if night could even be counted in the endless dark of space, the hum of the life support died. Marcus slammed his hands against the controls, swearing under his breath. Damn it! Not now. He pried open the panel, sweat dripping from his brow as he rewired the failing circuits. Sparks burned his hands, but he kept working. Leora's voice came from behind him, weak but sharp. You cannot fix everything. You will kill yourself trying. Marcus gritted his teeth. Better me than both of us. He worked until the lights flared back on, the steady hum returning. Marcus sagged against the wall, his breath ragged. When he turned, he saw her watching him. Not with hatred this time, with something else, something quieter. You are a fool, she whispered. But perhaps not the worst fool. He gave a tired grin. I will take that as a compliment. For the first time, she did not turn away. She looked at him, truly looked, as if trying to understand why a human would fight so hard for someone who begged to die. And in that silence, something shifted. But the outpost was not done testing them. Deep in the bowels of the station, a warning light flickered to life. A breach in the lower decks. Pressure loss. Something had stirred in the dark halls. Something moving where nothing should move. Marcus froze, staring at the flashing red on his console. That is not system failure. Leora's voice was barely audible, but her tone was sharp with alarm. Then what is it? Marcus glanced toward the door, hand tightening on his weapon. Trouble. The console lights glared red, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. Marcus kept his hand on his weapon as he listened. The silence was no longer empty. Somewhere in the lower levels, faint metal groans echoed, slow, deliberate, not the random collapse of old machinery. Leora tried to sit up, wincing as her healing wounds protested. Raiders? She whispered. Marcus shook his head. Too quiet. Raiders make noise on purpose. They like you to hear them coming. The sound came again, a dragging scrape along the deck plates below. Marcus tightened his grip on his sidearm. He had learned to trust his instincts, and right now they screamed at him that they were not alone. Stay here, he said, moving toward the corridor. Leora's voice cut through the shadows, sharper than her body had strength for. Do not order me like a child. Marcus turned back, meeting her violet gaze. Even pale and frail, her eyes burned. Then stay because I said please, he muttered, before slipping into the hall. The lower deck smelled of stale air and rust. His flashlight swept across broken consoles and twisted metal. The sound had stopped. That was worse than hearing it. Silence was the oldest trick in the hunter's book. A vent grill clattered to the ground. Marcus spun, weapon raised. But what emerged was not a raider, nor some beast crawling in from the asteroid outside. It was a small machine, barely the size of a dog, dragging itself on half-broken legs. Its sensors flickered as it scanned him. A maintenance drone, damaged, its systems corrupted. It lunged. Marcus fired, the shot sparking off metal. The drone shuddered, shrieked in static, and collapsed in a smoking heap. He exhaled slowly, lowering the weapon. Just a drone. But if the systems were waking, then there would be more. When he returned, Leora was propped against the wall, eyes fixed on him. So, what did you find? He kicked the dead drone onto the floor between them. One of these, damaged. There will be others. Her gaze lingered on the machine. Your stubbornness keeps us alive. But for how long, Marcus Hale? He knelt beside her, checking her bandages. As long as it takes. Over the next days, the failing station forced them into uneasy partnership. Marcus repaired what he could, while Leora, still weak but regaining strength, used her knowledge of energy systems to guide him. Her people's technology was different, but she understood the principles better than he did. At first, she gave orders coldly, snapping corrections, but soon her tone softened into shared effort. One evening, after hours of patching life support conduits, Marcus collapsed against the wall, sweat dripping into his eyes. His hands were blistered, his muscles trembling with exhaustion. Leora watched him, silent at first. Then, slowly, she pushed herself to her knees and reached for the canteen. Her hands shook as she offered it to him. Marcus blinked in surprise. Thought you hated me. I still do, she said quietly, though there was no venom in her words. But you are too stubborn to let yourself rest. Drink, before you collapse and doom us both. He smirked, taking the canteen. That almost sounded like concern. Her gaze flickered away. Do not twist my words. For the first time, Marcus laughed. It was a small sound, rough from exhaustion but real. And to his shock, the corners of her lips twitched as if she almost smiled. Later, when the hum of the repaired systems filled the silence, she spoke again, her voice softer than before. My mate's name was Kalen. He was a warrior of great honor. When he died, I lost my place among my people. They said I was weak, unworthy to follow him in death. That is why they left me here, alone. Marcus listened, the weight of her confession sinking deep. He thought of his own family, the fire, the screaming, the emptiness that had followed. He swallowed hard. I lost my family too. Raiders. I lived when they did not. For a long time I thought I should have gone with them. But I kept breathing. Because if I stopped, then their lives meant nothing. Leora looked at him, her luminous eyes softening. And did it help? To live? Marcus nodded slowly. It is the only thing that ever did. For the first time, she did not argue. She only held his gaze, her defiance giving way to something fragile. In the days that followed, suspicion turned to trust. Trust grew into quiet companionship. They shared rations, stories, even laughter. And when Marcus's hands bled from repairing a broken generator, it was Leora who tore strips from her own cloak to bandage him. The outpost no longer felt like a tomb. Felt alive, if only just two broken souls holding each other above the dark. But peace in the void never lasted. The long-range sensors crackled awake one cycle, their broken screen flickering with signals. Marcus bent over it, frowning. Shapes approached from the black. Fast, purposeful. Ships without identification, their engines burning like hungry wolves. Raiders. Marcus's jaw tightened. He turned to Leora. We have incoming. Her face went pale, her voice barely above a whisper. Then we are already dead. The sensor screen flickered with jagged red signatures. The ships were closing fast, their thrusters burning hotter with each passing minute. Raiders hungry for scrap, for blood, for anything they could take. Marcus cursed under his breath. 3 ships, small but armed. Leora's hands trembled against the console. They will strip the outpost, take what they want, kill who they must. You should go, Marcus Hale. Take your shuttle and leave me. Marcus turned, his jaw set. Not happening. Her eyes flashed with anger and fear. You cannot fight them all. I will only slow you down. He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. We fight together or we die apart. Your choice. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then, with a sharp breath, Leora nodded. The next hours blurred into desperate preparation. Marcus scavenged mining tools, welding torches, even broken or drones, turning them into crude traps. Leora helped him reroute the power grid, channeling energy into old defense turrets that had not fired in years. Her hands shook as she worked, but her eyes were sharp, determined. When the first raider ship latched onto the station's hull, the sound thundered through the corridors like a drumbeat. Marcus raised his rifle, his heart steady. Leora stood beside him, a scavenged blade in her hand. The doors blew inward. Armed men stormed through, shouting in a language Marcus did not know. He fired first, his shot dropping the lead raider. The others scattered, returning fire. Sparks rained as bullets tore through metal. Leora lunged forward with a cry, her blade flashing. She moved with the precision of her warrior bloodline, cutting down one raider before another grabbed her from behind. She twisted, driving the blade backward into his chest. Marcus covered her flank, blasting another who tried to circle them. Left side, he shouted. She pivoted, striking down the threat with a sweep of her weapon. For a heartbeat, they moved as one, human and alien. 2 broken souls fighting with the rhythm of survival. But the raiders kept coming. More boots thundered in the halls, more shadows spilling into the outpost. Marcus pulled Leora into cover as bullets chewed through the walls around them. They will overwhelm us, she hissed. Not if we spring the trap. Marcus slammed his hand on the console, sending power surging into the haulers on the lower deck. The machines roared awake, their magnetic claws snapping free. With a crash, the drones tore into the raiders from behind, crushing them against the walls. Screams echoed, metal shrieked. The outpost itself shuddered under the violence. When the dust settled, silence fell heavy once more. Raider bodies littered the corridors. Smoke curled from broken machines. Marcus lowered his weapon, his chest heaving. Beside him, Leora leaned against the wall, her blade dripping, her face pale with exhaustion. Yet her eyes burned with something fierce, something alive. "They are gone," she whispered. "For now," Marcus said. He looked at her, at the blood smeared across her hands, the fire in her gaze. "You fought like hell." Her breath caught. For the first time, she did not look ashamed. She looked proud. "I fought because you would not let me give up." The words hung between them, heavier than the silence that followed. But the battle was not without cost. More ships might come. The outpost was scarred, bleeding air through ruptured hulls. And both of them, though alive, were stretched to their limits. Marcus sank to the floor, his weapon slipping from his grasp. "We cannot hold much longer," he murmured. Leora slid down beside him, their shoulders brushing. Her violet eyes lingered on his face, softer now, as if she finally saw the man beneath the stubbornness. Her voice was a whisper, fragile but certain. "Then let us face whatever comes together." Marcus turned his head, meeting her gaze. And for once he had no argument left. The silence after battle was heavier than the fight itself. Smoke drifted through the corridors, the stench of scorched metal and blood clinging to the air. Marcus sat slumped against the wall, his chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. His weapon lay across his knees, useless now, the last charge spent. Beside him, Leora wiped the blade clean against her torn cloak. Her hands trembled, but not from weakness, from something deeper. She had fought to survive, and in doing so, she had defied everything her people had told her she must be. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The station groaned as if mourning its own wounds. Finally, Leora turned her head toward Marcus. Her violet eyes no longer blazed with anger or despair. They were softer now, filled with something he had not seen before. "I was a widow," she whispered. "I thought my life ended with Kaelin. I thought my people were right to leave me to die. But—" her voice broke, and she drew in a trembling breath. "But I was wrong. You gave me back something I thought I had lost forever. You gave me life." Marcus studied her face, streaked with sweat and blood. He saw not weakness, but strength. Not despair, but fire. Slowly, he reached out his hand. For the first time, Leora did not pull away. Her fingers slipped into his, warm and trembling, and she held on as if letting go would mean falling back into the void. No words passed between them. They did not need them. The rescue came 2 days later, a Union patrol ship drawn by the fading distress beacon Marcus had repaired. Its floodlights cut through the dark, its docking clamps rattling the battered outpost. Soldiers moved through the halls, weapons ready, only to find the 2 survivors sitting side by side amid the wreckage. The captain offered them passage back, a chance to leave the tomb behind. Marcus glanced at Leora, waiting for her answer. Her people would never forgive her for surviving. To them, she would always be dishonored. But Leora lifted her chin, her hand still wrapped in his. "I choose life," she said. Her voice was steady, strong. "I choose him." And with that, the decision was made. As the patrol ship pulled away, the mining outpost shrank into the void. No longer a graveyard, no longer a place of exile. It became something else entirely. A place where death was defied, where 2 broken souls had found hope in each other. In the silence of the stars, Marcus and Leora sat together, their hands still joined. They had come from loss, from pain, from the edge of surrender. But they had chosen to live, and that choice changed everything.